Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the session on Panchakosha Vikas, the interactive way.
No.
I've just muted everyone. It's exactly 4:01 by my clock. We'll wait for another 2 minutes as I see a lot of people joining in. So exactly by 4:03, we'll begin the session. The resource person for the day has already joined in. We'll just wait for another 1 or 2 minutes, just allowing everybody to join in, and then we'll begin. Good afternoon. In the meanwhile, if everybody can tell me in the chat box, what all do you remember of the Panchakosha Vikas? So we understand that Panchakosha Vikas is very important for the foundational years, and that's why we are doing it in different forms and manner. We've done a couple of sessions before. If anybody can tell me, what do you understand by Panchakosha Vikas? Anything that comes to your mind, please write it down in the chat box. I'll quickly take them up from there, just so the context is set and we know what we're talking about. Anything? What do you understand by Panchakosha Vikas? Anyone in the chat box? Anything you remember from the Panchakosha Vikas? All right, so 4:03 by my clock, and we will begin the session at this point. A lot of people have joined in and continue to join. So once again, very good evening to all the people who joined in today for this session from Madhubun Foundations on Panchakosha Vikas, the interactive way. Today we have as a resource person Ms. Ruma Purkayastha, who's going to talk about basics of Panchakosha. What is it? How we go about using it in the classroom? Why was it introduced? Why so much emphasis on Panchakosha? And practical application of Panchakosha in the classroom. When we say Panchakosha, it's easy to understand at times, it's easy to understand why, but actually implementing it in the classrooms with such tiny tots becomes difficult. So, Ruma ma'am, over to you.
Good evening. Thank you, Himani. Good evening, my dear friends who are all here. Thank you for joining in Saturday afternoon. And let's get some answers of what you think is Panchakosha. As Himani pointed out, let's get a couple of answers in the chat box. What do you think is Panchakosha? Everybody knows what is Panchakosha.
Anything that comes to your mind. Let's have the chat box active.
Let's just do that. Come on, teachers, let's get some. There are no right or wrong answers here, as I always say. Everything is right. It's just the way we look at it. It's
holistic.
Holistic development, 5 elements, yes. Holistic development.
Good.
Let's
What
get
else?
a couple of more answers and then we'll start.
Let's think. We just want everybody to get thinking.
5 elements, all right. Using the 5 senses, yes. Okay. Okay, we're getting there. All right. Panchakosha. There's so much that's being talked about Panchakosha. Our senses, yes, we understand the world from our senses. Curriculum framework based on the 5 elements, absolutely. And I will come to it later as to why the curriculum has been framed around the 5 senses. It, under no circumstances does it mean that we were not doing it earlier. Teaching has focused around this. Our whatever we've been doing all these years, in these decades, has also been centered around this. But I think the NEP has brought it in and made it more comprehensive and easier for us to implement, and it's more directive. So we will think along what the Panchakosha tells us. Himani, do I have the rights to share the PPT?
Yes, ma'am, you're the co-host.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody's on mute. In case you have any questions or any doubts, please feel free. I'm active on the chat box to take up all your questions.
Okay, Panchakosha. I really wish and hope and understand that all of you in the audience have at least briefly, if not more, gone through the NCF. As I say it in all my sessions, it's a beautiful document. Go through it. Go through the NEP, go through the, and since we're all early childhood educators here, it would help all of us to go through the NCF. Panchakosha, yes, something to do with 5, right? It's quite simple. It's something to do with 5. You know, the Panchakosha is actually a very ancient explanation or an explication of how important the body and the mind are as a complex. We all know mind over matter. We all know how our mind governs our bodies. We all know that we need to have a harmonious body for learning to be better, etc., etc. But this whole thing is so complex. This whole thing is so important that we need to understand this while we are dealing with our little children. And Panchakosha talks about an individual, one single person, and how that one single person is made up. Panch means 5. I think all of you here know it. All of us are aware that Panch means 5. And Kosh is sheath, a cover, a layer. So it's quite simple that we have 5 layers to ourselves. And our Upanishads actually tell us that our soul is covered by these 5 layers that we all have. And we go through this journey of life trying to unravel these 5 layers till we reach the soul, which is covered by these 5 layers. I will not go into that, but yes, to the extent that it influences what we do in our schools. Now, this tradition of the Panchakosha is dealing with the whole being. A child is a whole being with those 5 sheets. And when we talk about holistic development, which is what our education is all about, we are taking into account the nurturing and the nourishing of all these 5 layers. So the senses, which helps us to learn, are in fact nurturing and nourishing these 5 layers around us. Okay? And each layer has a different function, but they're all overlapping. Now, what are these layers? We have the physical layer, which is the Annamaya, the life force energy layer, which is the Pranamaya, the Manomaya, which is to do with our mind, the Vijnana layer, which is to do with our intellectual development, and the Anandmaya, which is the inner self. This is very simple, and I'm sure all of you understand the basic thing. So there's nothing to get flustered over what the Panchakosha is. As individuals, we all know that we have these 5 layers. Now, this approach is a very, very clear approach. It tells us what the child is made up of. We are going to talk about the child. And when I say the child, of course, it refers to all of us. We've all come from there. But a child has all these 5 layers. And what are we going to do about these 5 layers? Now, there are different types of practices that are there which enable a particular layer to unfold, to nourish, to flourish. That is not to say that the stimulus is only restricted to that one layer. It obviously influences all the other layers also. For example, when I talk about the physical dimension, if the physical dimension, we're looking at balanced diet, games, exercise, yoga. At the same time, our fine motor coordination, our fine motor skills are developing, our gross motor skills are developing. When we're talking about the various, breathing properly, learning the right breathing technique, yes, we're looking at the correct oxygen supply or the correct way the oxygen gets supplied into our bodies. But we're also in this process training the tone and the voice and the pitch. So they're all interconnected layers. Now, each layer therefore exhibits different, distinct characteristics. Okay, quickly in the chat box, what is this layer? And Himani, I would request you to just read out what the chat box says.
So.
Okay, what is this? It's a very, very self-evident picture. What is this layer talking about? We're going to quickly go through the, okay.
Physical enjoyment.
Yes, physical and enjoyment. Yes, of course.
Physical.
That's the basic thing. Thank you. It is
leisure time.
Leisure time. Yes, we all love it, isn't it? Okay. So when we talk about the physical development, which is Sharirik Vikas, we are looking at age-specific balance development. We are developing our balance at what is required at that particular age. When a little child, at what age does the child crawl? At what age does the child stand? Takes a few steps, starts walking properly, starts walking without support, finally comes to school. So age-specific balanced physical development. At the same time, all the senses are developing. We're looking at nutrition, hygiene, personal health, more and more physical activities. That is why we have so many physical activities in our schools. And while we are doing all this, we are also helping to develop habits of healthy living. We will see later, habits of healthy living are also, has been given to us as a domain now. What is this? Again, some answers in the chat box, please. Self-explanatory pictures. Let's see, what do these pictures tell you? Somebody is sleeping, someone's walking. Anybody, any guesses?
Mental balance, sleeping, mental balance, life force, good and health,
yes,
life.
Absolutely. Yoga, self-dependent balance. Thank you. I got the word I was looking for, the balance. At this age, we talk about work-life balance. We talk about home and work balance. We're always being told, where's your work-life balance? You don't seem to have any balance. You're either not doing anything or you're only working. Balance. Balance is such an important part of our lives. We have to learn how to balance things. With the balance comes the energy. So the life energy that we have, how do we develop it? How do we balance it? How do we create it? How do we use it? Where is this? 1 minute. Just a second. I think there's something yeah, okay. Now, balance and retention of energy. How enthusiastic I am. Do I have positive energy or do I have negative energy? I always have both. There'll always be negative energy in my life. There'll always be positive energy in my life. But I have to strive to have more positive energy in my life. And whether all my functions, my systems are functioning smoothly. My digestive, my respiratory, my circulatory, etc., etc., etc. Are they working properly? Is my nervous system properly activated? And so on and so forth. So this is life energy. So we're talking about the physical development. We're talking about pranic vikas, which is energy. And without energy, I think nothing is really possible. And we all know we dip in our energies. We dip in our mental energies. Our physical energies change. Our emotional energies change. Our cognitive and even cognitive energy. Everything is energy based. This one, this picture. Let's see, what is this picture? Emotions, okay. Wow, there's a consensus on this. Emotions, yes. Absolutely, emotions. And emotions are such a big part of our lives, isn't it? Right now, with I think we are 121 of us here, we have 121 kinds of emotions running. Different 121 levels of energy in this entire group of ours. Emotions, various emotions. Happiness could be on various dimensions. Listlessness could be on different dimensions, anything. Emotions are a very, very, very important part of our lives. And we all need to learn how to identify, label, and handle our emotions. If I don't identify, I don't label, I cannot handle my emotions. And it's very, very interesting that this has been a part of our ethos, a part of our system from the times gone by. Today, it's been re-brought into our curriculums. It's only to awaken us to the fact that we were probably not doing it the way we should have been doing it. Now, if you look at this, we call it the emotional and mental development. They're not separate. With our emotions, our mental development also grows in the same direction. We learn to concentrate. We learn what is peace, to be peaceful, to look for peace. Our willpower, the will to do something or the will to not do something. Courage, negative emotions, and how do we handle them? As I said, there will be negative emotions. And while we do this, the will to detach ourselves from situations and to develop virtues, to be happy, to have the right kind of virtues, to develop the right kind of values. This is what our Mansik Vikas is said to be, contrary to us always thinking of Mansik Vikas as cognitive development. What is this? Himani, could you please read out the answers? I think I get stuck every time I open the chat box.
That's fine. Intellectual thinking.
Yes.
Puzzled thoughts, thought
Yes.
process, puzzle.
Very nice. So it's to do with the thought. It's to do with our mind. It's to do with the way we think.
Cognitive.
Yes. So this is Bodhik Vikas, which we call intellectual development. Now, when we talk of intellectual development, we're in school, we're only talking of cognitive development. Observing, experimenting, analyzing, different kinds of thinking, divergent, convergent thinking, abstract thinking, spatial thinking, the list is endless. Reasoning with logic, reasoning with intuition. Our linguistic skills, which are so important. Imagination, creativity, discriminating, generalization, and so on and so forth. This is all got to do with our intellectual development. And this is what we are looking at when we are looking at our textbooks, when we are looking at our curriculum. Now, while we are looking at all this, we are not supposed to, or we should plan in such a way that we don't neglect the other areas. Panchakosha, all five should be involved, irrespective of which domain you are looking at. This one. Let's get some answers for this picture. Any answers, ma'am?
Peace, pray. Prayer, meditation, inner strength, silence of mind, calms, read, mental peace, meditation, meditation,
nice.
prayer.
Very nice.
Imagination, intellectual prayer.
Yes. So this
Inner
is
self.
our inner self. This is the spiritual development that we are all aiming for, or we should aim for. Happiness, love, compassion, a must in everyone's life. Spontaneity, sense of freedom, the aesthetic sense. Briefly, it's been called the journey of turning your awareness inwards. Now, at the school level, We are not looking at, enlightenment and things like that, but definitely we are looking at having our children happy. Our children developing love and compassion, to be able to understand freedom, some amount of aesthetic sense, and a little awareness of who I am, where am I going, what is my self-identity, because with that, I develop my own self-concept. Okay, so this is what we had to say about the Panchakosha per se as it's been given. Now, again, to repeat, the Panchakosha is a body-mind complex. And this body-mind complex is what human experience is all about, and we have to understand, and human understanding comes from there. As I said earlier, conceptualizing an individual in his 5 sheets. We are all made up of these 5 sheets. Now, this entire thing that has been given to us, it is very simple. It has been mapped into the different domains of development. It is called non-dichotomous because here there is no dichotomy. There is no if you do this, if you do that. You can do this, you can do that. It very clearly tells us that there are these 5 domains or 6 domains, and you have to plan your curriculum, your learning outcomes, your competencies accordingly. So we have very clear pathways when we look at the Panchakosha. And of course, the Panchakosha is what is looking at more holistic education. Quickly, a recap: physical development, life energy, mental development, intellectual development, and spiritual development. Now, why was this brought in so seriously? The NEP, if I have to put it into a simple words, is focusing on learning with understanding. And the 2 main things that have emerged are the focus on foundational literacy and numeracy, and dropping or reducing rote learning. The current state in our country, I have said this earlier, that by 2030, we are going to be the world's largest youth population. I don't fail to repeat this because it's a very, very serious state. If we have such a huge human resource potential in the country, what are we doing about it? And we as educators, I think, have a huge role to play in this. We have great potential, which is unfulfilled. We've had diverse institutional settings. We have institutions across the country following different things, different forms, different boards, etc., etc. We've had a host of unregulated private preschools, which have been mushrooming everywhere, having their own curriculum, and somehow their preschools have all become about teaching them numbers and words, getting them ready, not for class 1, I think getting them ready for class 5 with rote learning, without any understanding of what is happening. Not all, but yes, a lot of mushroomed preschool, a lot of preschools which mushroomed were a cause of great concern. Access and enrollment, yes, in the government, in the corners of our country, in the corners of various areas where, education has not reached the kind of education that most of you probably are dealing with. There is limited access, there's limited enrollment. Our dropout rates in the country are still very high. Human resources have not been tapped to its, have not been tapped fully. At the same time, human resources have not been developed in many ways. There are nutrition issues and our learning outcomes have not been defined. Just to put it very, very briefly, this is what was the current state of our education that was happening. And that is why the NEP has taken into account so many varied aspects in the country. Of course, transition stage, we are moving into more holistic education from disciplinary. That's not to say that we are not going to discipline, because one of the major things about discipline is self-discipline. Of course, there are just new curricular and pedagogical structure and a shift into analytical thinking. This, I think, everybody in the audience is aware of. Quickly, I'd like you to understand what are the aims, goals, competencies, and learning outcomes. I know that every one of you here in the audience writes lesson plans, is aware of these words. So we'll do a quick a quick recap. And I'm calling it a recap because I know that all of you here know this. Now, what is the purpose of education? Develop good human beings? We all know that. Every time somebody asks us this, what is the purpose of education in an interview or in any other setting, we always say to develop good human beings, to have global citizens, to have children who are compassionate, empathetic, etc., etc. Yes, it's right. It's capable of rational thought, compassion, empathy, courage, resilience, scientific temper, creative imagination, and sound set of values. Aims of education have not changed. Aims of education have remained what they were. They've just been brought in again and again and reiterated. Now, if that is our aim, what is the curricular goal? The goal is derived from the aim. Now, the goal is to give statements that give direction to how a curriculum develops, is a curricular goal. Now, if I say that one of the goals of NCF is that children develop effective communication skills for day-to-day interactions in both languages. That's my curricular goal. What is the competency that I'm looking at? Now, competencies are learning achievements that are observed and they can be assessed. Now, how do I know whether my students have actually got effective communication skills? I need to have something on which I have to assess them. So when I talk about a competency, it is something that is accessible. And it comes out of the curricular goal. Now, in this case, I would probably say, if I'm looking at communication, is able to converse fluently. He can hold a meaningful conversation. He can understand oral instructions for a complex task. He can give clear oral instructions to another person. These are the competencies. So from your aim is your curricular goal. From your curricular goal, you get your competency, which is what you are going to observe and measure and assess. It has to be something that is accessible. Learning outcome, what happens in the end? So now, if I'm going to say has to develop effective communication skill, it's going to be over a period of time. So in between, supposing it's a 1 year, it's a 1 year process that should be able to hold a meaningful conversation with another adult. Now, in that 1 year, I would have various interim markers, maybe at the end of 1 month, something, end of 2 months, something, end of 3rd month, something. Those are your learning outcomes. That's why we call them interim markers. Now, these interim markers is what helps you to plan your content, your pedagogy, and how you will assess. So if you please, I would like all of you to be very clear on this, because it becomes easier for you to implement the ACCE goals or what the Panchakosha later translates it. So the way forward is like this, because we move from aim to goal to competency to learning outcome. This is nothing new, dear teachers. You've been doing it in your lesson plans, in your planning, in your classrooms all along. We are just reiterating it so that you become a little more careful and cautious and aware of these things. What is this picture? Let's get some. It's a very self-explanatory picture, isn't it? Any answers, ma'am?
Gurukul.
Yes, Gurukul. Yeah, it was a very, very clear picture. It's the Gurukul. And as I have said here, it was the oldest system. It had fostered holistic education. It focused on teacher-student relationships. And it also saw very clearly what was the relationship between learning and growth. Today, we understand how the Gurukul system worked. But given our times, given the number of children we have, the kind of societies we live in, the kind of infrastructure available, it's not possible to per se go back to this. So what is then the ideal environment that we are going to follow now? So what is your ideal environment today? We talk about the Panchakosha. We are accepting that the Gurukul system is what is or was the best. or was good. I won't say the best, it was good. So what are we going to do to be able to bring not that system, but at least, the teacher-student relationship, the fact that learning and growth are interrelated, more holistic. So what is your idea of an ideal environment? Let's get some answers here, please. What's your idea of an ideal environment here?
Teaching in playway method, smart board system.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, smart boards, everybody has smart boards.
Interactive way acceptance, hands-on learning, homely environment, learning by doing interactive.
Wow, great. So we're all doing this in our schools, isn't it? So when we talk about everything is correct. We have smart boards, we have playway method, we have interactive method, etc., like you all said. The basis of all that, something is wrong. Okay, 1 minute. Okay. The basis of all that is we have to enable the desire to learn. Let's instill in our classrooms, in those little babies that come to us, the desire to learn. We instill that, we enable that, we prod that, we bring that in. We provide the right opportunities for them to develop. And how do they develop? They will explore, they will apply, and they will examine knowledge. You look at any activity that you do. If you are giving them the opportunity to explore what they are doing, and not you giving them the answers, or you writing it on the board and them copying it down, no. They have to explore themselves. What they have explored, they will learn to apply it. This is my clay. I can fold it, I can bend it, I can pull it, I can do whatever with it. It's just a very, very basic example. Can I make something with it? So I'm trying in various ways. I'm applying what I have explored. Once I've made it, I'm examining it. What did I do? What did I make? It's a very simple continuum that works. So your role is to provide the opportunity where they can explore, where they can apply, where they can examine. And if you do this, you will automatically cut down rote learning. You will automatically bring in learning with understanding. And you will automatically enable or arouse curiosity and enable the desire to learn. The will to learn, the will, the desire to experiment. And when children have a desire to experiment, they are willing to take risks. When they're willing to take risks, they learn how to take decisions. So it's a continuum that goes on. So an ideal environment, whatever you may use playway, you may use anything. If you look at this, the desire to learn, the opportunity to explore, apply, and examine knowledge, we won't be the Gurukul, but we would definitely be bringing in what the Gurukul was doing. Let's come to ECCE. Now, ECCE has translated the entire Panchakosha and given us these 5. Physical development, one of the koshas, the Annamaya, the life force, the Pranamaya, so physical development is the 2 of them. Social, emotional, and ethical development is again Manomaya. Cognitive development, language and literacy is your Vijnanamaya. Aesthetic and cultural development at this stage is what will ultimately lead to the last, which is the Anandamaya. So it's quite simple. Now we don't have to look, we are not going to get into our classes and say, all right, now we are taking these children onto a spiritual journey. No, we are only going to look at this. This is what the Panchakosha has translated into the ECCE domains that has been given to us. Physical development. I'm sure everybody is already aware of this and we're just going through this. Now, habits that keep them healthy, safe, how they develop their senses, and how they have a fit and flexible body. Now, how am I going to do this in my classroom? I know these are my goals. What am I going to do in the classroom? I have to see that develop habits that keep them healthy and safe. Now, how am I going to help them to develop habits? I have to see whether they're liking and understanding for nutritious food, does not waste food, is able to practice self-care and hygiene, basic self-care and hygiene, how to keep the classroom hygienic, organized, how to use material safely, whatever material there is in the class, how to keep it well, how to keep it safe. How aware am I of safety of in my movement? Some children come running into class, bang into desks and go. There are some who can navigate their way in the classrooms very well. Am I able to understand unsafe situations and ask for help? This, my dear teachers, is very, very important. I have to understand that a situation is unsafe. So this is what I have to plan for when I'm looking at physical development in my early childhood years classroom, in the foundational years classroom. Social, emotional, and ethical development. When we talk about emotional intelligence, positive attitudes towards productive work, even seva, which is a concept which is dying out, unfortunately, in our country, and positive regard for the natural environment around them. I always like to quote rights and duties here. We are very aware of our duty, of our rights, what happens to our duties. As a child, I have right to basic good furniture. It's also my duty to keep the furniture safe. I'm sorry, but to make sure the furniture is kept well and not break it. If I have a right to good drinking water in school, it's also my duty to not waste water. So little things like this, if you do, there will be a positive regard for the environment. Now, how am I going to do this in my classroom? Emotional intelligence, I know all of you know it, is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions and respond positively to the norms that are around us. I have to understand my own emotions. I have to understand the other person's emotions. So how I have to start, so I have to plan for activities where children start recognizing their self. I belong here. I belong to this family. I belong to this classroom. I belong to this school. I belong to this community. I can recognize different emotions and I can regulate them appropriately. I'm angry, but I should not show my anger by throwing a book. I have to understand that. There's nothing wrong in being angry. Anger is a natural human emotion. But if I'm angry, I don't go around breaking things and bullying and throwing things and making a nuisance of myself. I have to learn to interact comfortably with other children and adults. This is part of social, emotional, and ethical development because it's looking at your social relationships and it's looking at your emotional relationships also. Cooperative behavior with other children. Understand and respond to social norms. If I don't understand social norms in the classroom, I will never learn the social norms outside. There are norms in families, there are norms in school. I have to understand and behave accordingly. Otherwise, I'll only I will be of nuisance value to society as I grow up. Showing kindness and helpfulness to others. And here when we say, very clearly, the NEP says kindness, compassion to all living beings, which means humans, plants, animals. You see the kind of animal cruelty we have. So including animals and plants, they have to learn to show kindness and helpfulness to others and understand and respond positively to different thoughts and preferences. I have to understand that you may think differently. You may prefer something else. I may like red, you may like blue. I may like coffee, you may like tea. There's nothing wrong. We can still be friends. These are the kind of things that we need to inculcate in our children, which is going to help us develop the domain of socio-emotional and ethical development. Cognitive development, everybody is aware of. The entire focus of our education system has been on the cognitive development. The last line here, mathematical understanding and abilities. Fundamental literacy and numeracy, basic conversation, interaction with people, basic mathematical knowledge. I cannot go through life if I don't know the basic mathematical operations. So basic mathematical understanding is very, very important. Now for this, I have to understand that there are different categories of objects and relationships. There are different kinds of objects, there are different kinds of relationships. I have to understand that life, classroom, work, my studies, my content in the textbook is all about cause and effect. If I'm studying history today, it is because there has been a cause and effect in the past. Science is based on cause and effect. Everything in life is based on cause and effect. And how to use appropriate tools and technology in daily life situations. We've got digital literacy now as a financial literacy, digital literacy as skills to be developed in our schools. That's how much we are changing. And technology is here to stay. So to help our children to become aware of these things. Language and literacy also a definite part of our cognitive development because it's a prerequisite to all learning. Can we learn anything if we don't know language? It's not possible. So of course, it's fluency in reading and writing in language 1 and language 2. We won't get into that debate here. How do I do this at the basic level? Simple songs, rhymes, poems. Help get them to create their own. Converse fluently, have meaningful conversation, give oral instructions, comprehend, narrate stories, plots and characters. This list is endless. There's lots, and I'm sure all of you who are in your classrooms can add, I think, at least 10 more to these. So these are all little things by which language and literacy. But remember, language is a very vital tool for thought. If I cannot label the thought in my head, my thinking is not clear. If I cannot label the emotion or identify the emotion that I'm feeling, I will not be able to analyze it. Aesthetic and cultural development. Now, when we talk of this, we're talking about visual and performing arts. And just to say something here, that art integration that we talk about in our schools. Art integration is not just drawing and painting. Art integration can be done in every subject, in every class, everywhere. Won't go into that because then that's a completely different thing and we can go on talking. Now, explore and play with a variety of materials and tools, toys, textures. You do all that. You do textures, you do senses, you do all kinds of things in your classes. Play with your own voice, body, and object space. Why do we do things like know your body? Space. Work imaginatively, work collaboratively, communicate and appreciate. Please encourage children to appreciate. Appreciate color, appreciate nature, appreciate each other. Appreciation releases a positive hormone in the body. It leads to a positive feeling, it leads to positive energy, it leads to happiness. Positive learning habits. It's very interesting, and I sort of applaud this, that this is coming as a part of a domain in our NCF. So somewhere positive learning habits have been lost. You know, we would always say that a student learns when a teacher teaches. So we would say the teacher hasn't taught properly, so the student hasn't learned. Let's look at it differently. Now we say, let's diagnose the learning gaps and address it. What is the learning gap? Where is it that the child has not learned? Let's address that. So our own thinking has also changed. We're not really saying that I haven't taught, so they haven't learned. Okay, if I haven't taught, where is the gap? If there is a gap, let me address that. So it's become more democratic. Now in this, we are looking at habits of learning. We have to teach our children how to learn. The focus is on how to learn more than what to learn. If I know how to learn, I will know what to learn. So the skill to plan, focus, and direct my activity. It's a skill. I need to learn that skill. Develop a working memory, mental flexibility, to be able to understand others, to be able to go from one thought to another and not be rigid in my thinking. Self-control, observation skills. Let's home in on observation skills for our children. Of course, there'll still be the few in your classes who may be very different, and children are different. But at least encourage them to observe minute details of whatever they are doing. And of course, follow norms and understand them. Before I close and I open up to questions, engaging early learners. There's only one mantra which I found and I believe in and I want to share with you. Talk, read, sing. Make your classes full of life. Make your classes fun. Give them room to explore, imagine, make mistakes. They learn by mistakes. We've all made mistakes. We still make mistakes and learn. Even with all my gray hair, I still make mistakes, but I'm learning. So talk, read, sing. I loved this thing when I saw this, because talk, read, sing means a happy classroom, a lot of action in the classroom, a lot of positive energy in the classroom, and learning will follow. So if there are any questions, I would like to take it up now. I can just stop sharing. So that was very briefly my attempt to explain to you what is the Panchakosha and how the Panchakosha has translated into the different domains of holistic development that we are looking at. So it's basically very simple. It's nothing new. It's something that you've all been doing. So any questions, please? I think, Himani, we do have 10 minutes, right?
Absolutely, ma'am. We are very well in time today. And teachers, anybody
Yes,
has any
ma'am.
questions?
With all the sessions, and I'm always being told you talk too much. So the first time I think I finished in time. I've always been told, ma'am, you talk too much, you take too much time. So
I will second that. And this is the first time I think we kind of summed it up in time.
yes.
If anyone has any question, you can
No,
either raise
please.
your hand or I'll unmute you, or you could put it in the chat box. Either way. Could you share your slide? Somebody's requested for the second last slide.
The second last slide. Okay.
Before engaging with everyone.
Okay. The previous slide, I think. This one? Is this the one, ma'am, that you wanted?
The one before that, ma'am.
Okay.
This message has been here. Where is it?
What has happened? This one?
The one before this.
Yes.
Yes, this one, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
Kindly share contact number for upcoming session. Vipula, Mr. Vipula, Mr. Vipulacharya. So, sir, we put in all our upcoming events on the Foundations group. I hope you're a part of it. Else, you can drop us a message. We'll add you to the group. Anyone else? Any questions you have or any feedback you have? Anything you've not understood? Anything you would like to contribute, add to what ma'am said? Something you're already doing in the classroom?
Can I stop the slide, ma'am?
Can we take off the slide? Keep the ma'am.
And then you can ask me whatever you want to.
Yeah. This is a very good session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Easy to understand. Yes, that was the aim, Dipali ma'am. That was the whole aim of the session.
We tried to make it simple.
Yes, to make it simple, to make it usable. And I rather, in fact, I have this question. I hope everybody is able to take from Panchakosha the interactive and the easy way, in a way that you can use in your class. Yes, no, maybe. If you can give me some thumbs up saying yes, we've been able to achieve it. Yes.
And
Ma'am,
I
yes.
would again, urge all of you to read the NCF, because all the activities that I have spoken about are very beautifully explained in the NCF.
That's very true.
You will get a clearer understanding, and in fact, the document will even give you various tips on what to plan and how to do it. We don't really have time here to go through that, and but please read it. You'll get a lot of pointers in that document.
With all the feedback, ma'am, we've been able to achieve the aim today. So this is easy to understand and happy session.
Thank you.
Fruitful session, yes. Thank you, wonderful session. And yes, we will be sharing the recording sometime soon. In the next week. How to get that document? Simran ma'am, if you want, I'll share it in the group itself.
Yes, I think ma'am, do that, because even though it's on the website, if you share it in the group, it will be easier for people to access it.
Definitely. My name is Shivang, and I want to ask you, I'm teaching in UP's, the Scholars Gurukul, and I wanted to ask you that how can we help our children in growing in this world? Because after COVID, students much more pampered nowadays, and we are pampering our students in the class. They are very much pampered, and parents were pampering so much. So how can you help me? I'm from Raipur. Uma ma'am, I think you read the question with me.
Yes. Now, you know what? I think we need to be very clear about what we mean by pampering. Children today are very different from what they were even 5 years ago. And parents also are very different. They have a completely different way that they're bringing up their children. Some of us misunderstand that as pampering. But yes, nowadays they are mollycoddled. They come to us. We cannot say much to them. And so we have to be very clear about the kind of words we use with our children. That's one thing. If I can talk, can I see you? This is Shivangi,
ma'am.
right?
Shivangi, yes, ma'am.
Shivangi from Raipur. So Shivangi, ma'am, I think it's not just your problem. I think it's across all schools who are facing this. Everybody feels that the children who've come back are over pampered. Now, I think, over pampering, it may not be over pampering, it's over concern. Parents are over concerned about their children. So one is that you get parents on board and explain to them. Maybe you could do a few parenting sessions with them so that they understand whether they're doing the right thing or no. Because over pampering also has a lot of negative fallouts. The other thing is that if you have children who are so sensitive and you have children, who have been mollycoddled, you have to handle them differently. Sometimes, we need to change the way we are also looking at our children. And every child is the best in his or her home. So you have the 40 bests in your class. So handling the 40 best, you have to be very cautious with what you do with them. So I would only suggest to you that please analyze what you understand or what you mean by pampering. And if there are ways in which you can circumvent that, talk to the parents, look if you can change the way you are teaching. Maybe it won't come across as pampering. Maybe you are being, you expect something else from the children than what they're showing. You have to understand the children have changed. The kind of behavior they show is very different. And it is not just post-COVID. It's, I've always been hearing this, that during the COVID, these children haven't studied. So their grades are falling. But, research analysis tells us the poor performance is, on an average, the children who are not performing well earlier are the same ones who are not performing well even now. So why are we blaming it on COVID? Yes, I do understand that they've lost out on a lot of social interaction. So ma'am, please look at that. And if you still have any more questions, please connect with me individually. I'll be happy to help you out.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Anyone else has any questions? See, a lot of teachers even agree with what you just explained. It's like, oh, ma'am. Nowadays, I mean, even if you think of us as parents, the one child a family has, or maybe maximum 2 children, and we always, I've heard parents and even teachers for that matter say, "Ki jo hame nahi mila, hum bachon ko denge." So I'm not supporting that argument, but nevertheless, this feeling stays. So even we want to do it.
Himani, I would like to interrupt here and say that there is nothing wrong in a parent saying that what I didn't get, I would like to give my children.
No, there's nothing wrong. But in an attempt to do that, they go overboard at times.
Yes, that I accept, that they do go overboard, and that is what makes the life of the teachers difficult in schools.
Yes.
Because they're over pampered, that way they get over pampered. So they find it difficult to adjust to those other 39 in the class. So that's why I said, please get parents on board and explain the situation to them. Every child, every teacher is a psychologist. Please remember that.
And we don't need degrees. We are psychologists by experience.
And every teacher is a counselor.
Absolutely.
So bring in those counseling skills and talk to your parents.
Jalpa ma'am, there is no attendance link. The feedback link I will share in the group on Monday. I'll share it in the group. Once you fill in the feedback form, you'll automatically get your certificates. All right. So if you don't have any more questions, could we close this session?
Yes, ma'am. I think we're in time.
And just in time for the
Yes,
first time,
for
actually.
the first time.
Thank you so much, teachers, for joining in on a Saturday evening. Looking forward to many more such sessions. Please keep
And ma'am,
connected with us.
they can write into us on what they would like our sessions to be on.
That will be even better. So if you would like any point from the foundations or anything that you're hearing new, that you don't understand, that you feel that we should explain more, discuss more, just drop us a WhatsApp message on the group or even on my personal number, Himani Mittal. You'll find me in the group also. I'll definitely take that, and our upcoming sessions, we'll plan them accordingly. Thank you. Thank you so much, and have a session on inclusive learning. Okay, Arpita.
Yeah, I
Arpita,
think
noted. Anything else?
Yes,
Inclusive learning, definitely. That's a very good suggestion, actually.
we'll do that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Happy weekend, teachers. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.